Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together we are minting coins. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this video. Feel free to like this video, comment in the comment box on STEEMIT or YouTube. Let us know if you have any questions or comments about anything that we talk about. And join the conversation. Get involved into what's going on as we dive into the world of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So in today's show, we're going to be talking about all of the money in the world, all of the money, all put together. We have the money, we have the cash, we have the gold, we have the debt and derivatives. And we're going to just put that into perspective using this article that's an oldie but a goodie. And it's going to help us understand in infographic terms the relationship of all the Bitcoin in the world, at least as it was about a year ago. So things are better and things are worse, as we'll see. And then let's look at all of the Bitcoin in the world, and then we're going to take a look at how that all the Bitcoin in the world is distributed based on how much Bitcoin is inside all of the addresses that we can see. And so this is going to be, I think, a really fun video. This is going to be a really interesting video, and this might be a little sobering as well, for better or for worse, depending if we're talking about traditional old world fiat or if we're talking about the new industrial order and Bitcoin, especially if you have about any Bitcoin at all. So with that being said, let's take a quick peek at the market, look at the news, and let's discuss. All right, so starting really quickly at coinmarketcap.com, just take a quick peek at what the value of Bitcoin is at the making of this video. We have 1,138 cryptocurrencies, market capitalization 145.9 billion, 24-hour trading volume 2.8 billion, and a Bitcoin BTC dominance 49.2%. Each Bitcoin is currently worth $4,320 with a total Bitcoin market capitalization at $71.7 billion. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money. $71.7 billion and total market capitalization of all these different cryptocurrencies over $145 billion. That's a billion with a B. But, you know, even though that's a lot of money, let's look at this first news article published way ancient times, January 29th, 2016. I guess it's not so ancient. I guess ancient times would be before Bitcoin, maybe before 2008, before, 2007 or beyond or before. So, but nevertheless, this is over a year and a half ago. And let's put this into perspective. We have all the world's money into one chart. And the end result, spelled out right here, that this is going to end with 1.2 quadrillion invested in derivatives alone. So, let's see here. So we're going to be talking about a lot inside what refers to money, let it be banknotes, coins, savings deposit, checking accounts, all that put together is $80.9 trillion. Looking at what a quadrillion looks like, it's a 1 with all these zeros. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of zeros, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, and this would be 1 quadrillion. And so with the total derivatives that we're going to see at the end of this infographic being 1.2 quadrillion, this is in comparison to all the money in derivatives then in the stock market combined, which is comparative to 70 trillion. And so just stepping back for a second, when we see 1.2 quadrillion versus 70 trillion, the 0.2 quadrillion, just 0.2 quadrillion is 200 trillion. So when we see 70 trillion, I mean, 1.2 quadrillion is like so much money. So it's just crazy that there's more money in derivatives than just everything else put together. Also with this, the U.S. accounts for roughly half of the global market cap, thanks to companies like Apple and Alphabet and Microsoft Corporation. Investment real estate, 7.6 trillion. As far as money owned by every single person and country in the world, the grand total is 199 trillion. So out of that 1.2 quadrillion, the 0.2, or almost all that 0.2, that 99.5% is all the money in the world. And 29% of that, so almost a third, has been borrowed since the 2008 financial crisis. So can you say hello, Bitcoin? Bitcoin was created because of and after and through the 2008 financial crisis, and just we have so much more debt in our world since that event that it almost feels unsustainable. If someone could imagine what this looked like, then it might feel unsustainable as well. So with that being said, let's take a peek in here. So this one little dot right here represents $5 billion in cash, $5 billion in USD, the global world reserve currency currently and since for some time. So this $5 billion is representing Bitcoin because the value of all Bitcoins was roughly equal to $5 billion as of, I believe when this was written in 2016. The market capitalization of this cryptocurrency reached a peak of 14 billion in 2013. So this was 14 billion and then dropped all the way to 5 billion, even though we know from the beginning of this video that the current market cap of all of Bitcoin is a lot more, $71 billion. So where Bitcoin was when this article was written just over a year and a half ago, a year and 10 months ago, was right where Bitcoin Cash is. Isn't that interesting? So if we just blocked off these top 3 cryptocurrencies, this is kind of what it would have looked like. Wow, I bet Bitcoin Cash would love how that would look. Just wipe off the top 3, huh? But yeah, that's really interesting. Back to the article. So let's just keep this relative. So all these numbers are going to be relative for 2016, even though it's just really interesting to see how much Bitcoin has grown. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, the total amount of silver, because Bitcoin is really, the value is increased over gold to some respects. But so they're saying the value of all above ground silver stocks estimated by some at 1 billion ounces is 14 billion using $14 an ounce spot price. Even though I realize that silver is closer to, maybe 16 or 17 or $18 right now. This is just from, again, this point in time. World's richest people, according to Forbes, we have 79.2 billion, which is Bill Gates at the time. So you have Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Carlos Sim, 79.2 billion. That's where Bitcoin is now, practically, right? Super interesting. I just think that's so funny. Then we have the world's biggest companies. And so we have Berkshire Hathaway, Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, which is Google's a part of that now. Google is everything, but they changed the name. And then we have ExxonMobil. So at the time of here, we have Apple's the world's largest public company by market capitalization, worth $616 billion. Can you imagine when Bitcoin or even all the cryptocurrencies put together is, over 500 billion? That'll be monumentous. So then here we have the Federal Reserve balance sheet. Between 2008 2014, the Fed balance sheet jumped $4.5 trillion from $1 trillion due to the controversial quantitative easing programs. So we have $3.5 trillion added during quantitative easing. So what the hell is quantitative easing? From my understanding of what that means, it simply allows somehow allows the banks to buy things like stocks and different financial things like that. So when there's a recession and a major issue in the economy, instead of a company failing because the stock is crashing and no one has the money to buy it because they're all cashing out for fiat to feed their families, the banks are able to come and purchase those stocks and support the economy, which would otherwise take a greater hit overall. Where's all that money come from? Well, it's the Federal Reserve, so they could essentially print it. So moving on, then we have coins and banknotes. Then this is roughly 5 trillion for the total value of all the world's coins and banknotes. Then we have commercial real estate, broken up into the Americas, Europe, Asia, Pacific, and the Middle East plus Africa. And so all of this, institutional investors, with 1/3 of them public real estate companies, own about 7.6 trillion of commercial real estate worldwide. This is still a fraction of total of all real estate. Cool. So now we're up to gold. And now we have the world's total above ground gold reserves are estimated at 183,600, do you pronounce this tons or tones? By the World Gold Council. Using $1,200 spot price, the world's gold is worth 7.8 trillion, and 17% of that is held by the IMF and central banks. Now we have narrow money, and narrow money, according to the CIA fact book, is the total value of the world's easily accessible money, and that's $28.6 trillion. This narrow money includes world's coins, banknotes, and also checking deposits. Now we move on to the stock market, and this is huge, right? I mean, you remember what that little Bitcoin was, or the little Bill Gates, or here next to all the world stock markets, we have Apple. So this is what Apple was from above. And so all stock markets, the market capitalization of the world's stock markets is equal to $70 trillion at the time of this publication. And so this is separated. We have America in blue. We have the European Union in this, I don't know what color this is. It's like a aqua green. And we have 7% for Japan, 2% for China, 31% for the rest of the world. So that's a lot that's based in America. And but altogether, $70 trillion, that's a ton. So we went from narrow money to all stock markets to broad money. And so in the broad money, according to the CIA fact book, is the total value of the world's money is, and that's $80.9 trillion. And this broad money includes coins, banknotes, money market accounts, as well as savings, checkings, and time deposits. So this is the value of the world's money, $80 trillion. And then we have global debt. And so this is getting, really difficult to fit into the screen here. So try to zoom out a little bit, making it a little harder to see what's going on here. But you can almost see here, here's all global debt. I'll scroll a little bit. And this is the $199 trillion that we were talking about before. $199 trillion. And so we have, how is this broken up? So 29% accumulated since the 2008 financial crisis. And that's included in the above amount for a total of 59.7 trillion, which is just the United States. Then we have 26% for Europe, 20% for Japan, 6% for China, 19% for the rest of the world. And so Europe is a lot of countries all put together. Japan is one small country by itself. And we know Japan, with all this debt, if you're looking at this, the amount of orange here is, pretty similar to the amount of the aqua green or the turquoise-esque other color. There's more in Europe than Japan, but if you think about how many people there are in Europe versus Japan, and the land mass, and the potential of Europe versus just Japan, it's amazing to see how much debt Japan is in. I mean, this is 1/5 Japan, 1/4 Europe. And the United States is just a monster in terms of size, but this is a lot of debt for Japan. And that can help us maybe understand why Japan has negative interest rates and people pay the banks for the banks to hold their money. So this is a lot of debt overall in terms of all global debt at $199 trillion. So after that, this is not possible to fit on anyone's screen, but after that we have derivatives. So this is the low estimate of the size and scope of the global derivative markets at $630 trillion on a contractual basis, so national contract basis. So a derivative, let me see, what is this over here? So a derivative is a contract between two or more parties, and a derivatives get their value from the performance of an underlying asset or an index or some sort of entity. And so examples of derivatives are futures contracts, or sometimes forward contracts, options, warrants, swaps. Banks typically use high amounts of leverage to attain these positions, and some derivatives such as commodities futures are traded on regular exchanges such as the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, known as the CME. However, the majority of derivatives are traded outside of exchanges and between private companies, and those are called over-the-counter trades, OTC trades, which you may be familiar from the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin space. We have OTC crypto trades as well. And so this list is just going on and on in terms of all these little squares and how much there is. But collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps are two derivative types that are now infamous for their roles in the 2008 financial crisis. And now at this point of the infographic, we're actually reaching the lower end of the estimated $600 trillion. But this really continues to go on and on and on and on. And let me tell you, we are not the champions with this. Because the high estimate for the value of all these derivative contracts is as high as 1.2 quadrillion, which is what we were talking about to begin with. And according to this article, the truth is that no one really knows the exact size of the market for the derivatives market. And it's just nobody knows. Anyone that says they know, they don't know. And if they do know, you don't want to know what they know. So this can go on and on into the views on derivatives of what many financial professionals consider with derivatives in terms of zero-sum trades. And in other words, there is a winner and a loser on every side of the bet. And this goes on to say that, however, experts warn that the massive size of the derivatives market could contain significant risk and consequences to global markets, as we've seen in the 2008 financial crisis. And so then this finally ends right here, and this shows you what one little Bitcoin is compared to all of these derivatives and all of these derivatives and all of those derivatives and all national debt and all of broad money, all of stock money, stock market money, the narrow money, all of the gold. Look at all the gold. There's not even that much gold. You look at all the debt in the world and all the money in the world. It's just not a lot of gold in the world when you look at it like that. Let me see. Commercial real estate, coins, bank notes, Fed's balance sheet, businesses and business assets, humans, wealth assets, silver, and then we have our Bitcoin. And so all of these have probably increased a little bit, more or less. Let's see, each square this size represents $100 billion. And so all of these squares down here, each of these was $100 billion. It would have been good just to put in perspective to begin with, but these are it's just lots and lots of money. Can you believe how much money this is? It just blows my mind that there is this much debt in the world. And then we're all talking about these little 16.6 million Bitcoins that exist, right? It's crazy. This is a drop in the bucket. And I don't know if anyone really understands how few Bitcoins there are versus how much money in the world. And when you put that into perspective, if you just buy and hold one Bitcoin, you could possibly be set, right? Because if there is ever a concern for fiat money to sort of falter, and people have all of this money and narrow money, forget about the gold, right? I mean, yeah, people are going to want gold and the price of gold is going to go up. It's just difficult to transact in gold. It's difficult to bring gold, with you and over the border without it being stolen. There's, there are some issues with gold for some people, where Bitcoin sort of solves those issues, and people are loving Bitcoin. And if people have to put their money somewhere and they can't get that gold in a decentralized fashion like they can with Bitcoin, all of this fiat, all of this debt, all of this money, which has to go somewhere, a lot of this could end up going into Bitcoin. And so we have over here this really awesome Google spreadsheet on Google Drive. And what this spreadsheet is showing us, this is interesting. I definitely recommend you come and take a look at this, is we are seeing the percentage distribution of Bitcoin wealth across essentially the world. We're seeing all of the amounts. So in this first column right here, we have the percentile. And for example, we have the first percentile. And so this is 1% of all of the holders of Bitcoin have a minimum of 15 Bitcoins, somewhere in between 15 and 89 Bitcoins. 1% of all of the addresses have that much Bitcoin. And how many is 1%? How many addresses is that? It is over 225,000 Bitcoin addresses. This says number of Bitcoin owners, but this is really organized by addresses. And so if I'm one person and I have Bitcoin in 3 addresses that I control, then that would be 3 different Bitcoin owners according to how this must be set up. And then how many Bitcoins is that total? In total, that would apparently be around 2.2 million Bitcoins, apparently. Let's see here. Excellent. So what does this mean? This means that if you want to be part of the new 1%, you would need to have at least 15 Bitcoins to be part of the new 1%. If you had 21 Bitcoins, then you'd have 1/millionth of all the Bitcoin that was ever created. And so out of billions of people in the world, you'd have, with 21 Bitcoins, you'd have 1/millionth of that slice of pie. And so that's probably what a lot of people are thinking. That's what a lot of people were, was probably their goal. I wish I could have done that. But that is the case. And so if you have 15 or more, you're in that 1%. So if we drop all the way down to 10%, if you want to be part of the top 10% of all the people in the world that have Bitcoin, if you want to be part of the top 10% of all of the addresses in the world that have Bitcoin, then you would need to have at least 1.28 Bitcoin in a Bitcoin wallet. If you had at least 1.28 Bitcoin, then you'd be part of the top 10% of the world who owns Bitcoin. That is not a lot of Bitcoin, relatively speaking. I realize one Bitcoin is $4,300. It's possible to just chip away at it, because even if you can't save that much, moving down the list, if you had 0.1, so if you want to be even part of the top, let's say the top half, the top 50% of the world that owns Bitcoin, you would only need to own 0.04. So if you owned 0.04 or anything more than 0.037, then you would be part of the top 50% of all the people in the world that have Bitcoin. And then you could just work your way up this list because you can see overall, like, yes, the more Bitcoin that there is, maybe the fewer people that have it, because that's how it's getting spread out. There's this graphic right here. So that's the distribution, the percentile of Bitcoin ownership and the number of Bitcoins that they own. The way this is probably done, just keep in mind, this is like in between numbers. And so this very top one, 0.001, having at least 7,000. There's definitely some people that have more than 7,000 Bitcoins. But we just know it's more than 7,000, just like this 0.003. We know that everyone in this group, all 500 of these people, have somewhere in between 2,189 Bitcoins and 7,021 Bitcoins. So this is very, very interesting. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope this is sort of inspiring to help you recognize that if you had 0.001 Bitcoin, you would still have more Bitcoin in your possession than, let's say 99% of the rest of the world, because there's there's not a lot of people that have Bitcoin. And if this was to go to $1 million, then what would this be? $100,000 or $10,000? That would be a lot of money, depending on where you are in the world and what your situation is. And hell, if you just woke up one day and you just, had $10,000 in your pocket, then that would still be pretty cool. At least I think so. And so what do you think about this? Does this inspire you to maybe top off, or to show you that maybe you own more Bitcoin relatively than maybe you thought? Are you going to share this with anybody that you know? Is this sort of, I'm just interested. Is this a helpful guide? Just because I personally, I just found this really inspirational, and just really enlightening, and at the same time, just realizing how much potential there is for everybody still, because Bitcoin has such a long way to go, and we've barely scratched the surface of what's happening. I mean, the world, in my opinion, is really going to start paying attention in between the $5,000 and $10,000 per Bitcoin price, as we approach the anticipation of surpassing $10,000 after we hit that $5,000 and $6,000 mark. And so things are going to start to really accelerate. And then it's going to be really interesting to see how much of this global debt and global cash goes into the cryptocurrency market, which is currently only $145 billion. So I guess Bitcoin's come a long way since a year and 10 months ago, going from 5 billion and $400 or $500 to 71 billion and $4,300. So with that being said, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of this video. Please like this video if you found this helpful at all or interesting. Feel free to leave any comments with us at STEEMIT or on YouTube. Feel free to join our community. And I know it says that it's costs money, but if you just reach out to me, then that gets waived. For as long as it's manageable and it's not out of control where we need to throw the paywall back on. I guess just as like a disclaimer, we'll say like a few hundred people. So if you're part of the first few hundred people who want to join this community, just sign up and then don't pay, but just reach out to me, make a human connection, let me know who you are on the website, and I will make the account free for you so you can join in the conversation here, and maybe we can get more in depth talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and what it is that we can do for the world. So with that being said, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being part of this video. I can't wait to make the next one and talk to you guys more online. Until then, I'm glad that we are minting coins.